All right, you guys are gonna have to tell me if you can hear me or not, and I'll make sure you can hear me before I get into it. You know. Bit of a delay here, so bear with me. Hi. Can you guys, alright, you can hear me alright? The music's not too loud or whatever? I've just got like some random lo-fi playing in the background, so you'll have to tell me if the audio level's good. I am very, very rusty. I haven't streamed for like, God, how long has it been? People who joined me on Twitch all the time. Lena's here. Lena, how long has it been since I streamed on Twitch? Probably about like a year, hey. And I was trying to set this up, and I left it till like, music's a bit loud. Alright, I'll crank that down a little bit. Yeah, I was trying to set up the stream, and I'm using like Streamlabs OBS, and they've updated it a bunch since I used it last, and I just had no idea what was going on. And I was like, yeah, I'll just hop on like 10 minutes before the stream, it'll be okay. And it was not. It was not okay, but there you go. It all seems to be working alright though, considering I haven't streamed on YouTube for like multiple years. This is usually my Twitch setup. Nice. You'll notice my eye's a little bit red because I banged the hell out of it today too, so... I'll be honest, I wasn't even going to stream tonight. I was just going to postpone it till like tomorrow or something because, you know, like my eye hurts. I'm fucking exhausted from work. It's just a whole thing. And I was just going to stream tomorrow instead. But when I like came over to schedule it for tomorrow, I saw that it was like already past 11. And I was like, I'll just hop on. Why not? It'll be fine. February 2022 was the last stream. Holy hell. More than a year ago. Jesus. Okay. Alright, well, it's good to see you guys. Did I injure my eye fighting a spider? I wish I could tell you something that cool, but honestly, I was leaning over and I banged it, so... Very, very, you know, elegant of me. Alright, getting into it. Yeah, the purpose of today's stream, impromptu stream as it is pretty much to say that my book that I've been talking about non-stop for the last like year is either out right now or it should be out within the next half an hour, depending on where you live. In fact, it might help me if you guys... Hang on. Actually, I'll grab a link. If you just check Amazon, if you're on your computer or whatever, and see if the ebook, the audiobook, and the paperback are all available right now. That would actually help me out a bunch, so I can know if it's actually out for everyone yet or not. Just 1 second. But it should be. See, the thing with timing the ebook release with the audiobook and the paperback is that it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to do because you can make the ebook available for pre-order pretty much whenever you want, but with the paperback and the okay, I can't even chat there, hang on, I'll have to put it in here. Yeah, with the other stuff, with the paperback and the audiobook, you don't really get to choose a specific date that it goes up. You just upload it and then they process it and then it's up, but the processing time can be anywhere from like 1 day to 3 or 4 weeks, so you have no idea when it's actually going to go up. So the audiobook has actually been up for sale for I think over a week at this point. I just chose not to tell anyone because I kind of wanted people to not, you know. Anyway, you don't have to, but if you can, click that link and see if the books are available where you are. I'm not telling you to go buy it right now, I'm just saying it would just be interesting to know if it's all good to go, you know? Aside from that, how is everyone? How you been? Not a whole lot going on in the world right now, is there? It's been a bit of a firestorm, hasn't it? Paperback and audiobook is out for me. Cool. Is the ebook out yet? It might not be, because it's meant to release. Actually, I don't know. It's meant to release technically on the 30th, the ebook, even though the release date's the 31st, but I figured I would make it a day early just in case. Delivery is a little slow to Canada. Yeah, that's the link to the American Amazon. You might have to make it, you know, the Canadian Amazon or Australian Amazon, wherever you are, to get the proper delivery times, because I imagine they'd have a printing warehouse in Canada. Clicking a link, that's a pretty big ask. I've asked for way more from you guys. Thank you very much. It's available on Amazon Germany. Nice. Germany's a check. It's available in California, US. That's a check. Let's go. All right, cool. Sounds like it's... Oh, Kindle is not out. All right. Is it the 30th yet, where you are, Pants O'Hara? Because it should be... If it is the 30th yet, then it should be out. But if not, it might just be a little bit longer. Jenny just messaged me on Instagram to say, the stream isn't letting me send comments, but I have my ebook copy. Thanks, Jenny. All right. Well, I guess a good use of this stream, aside from me just sitting here and telling you that the book's out, would be for me to do a bit of a Q&A. I'll show you the paperback. I've got the paperback right here. And yeah, I'll talk about the book a little bit. It's going to be a very selfish live stream. It's going to be me talking about my own book because, you know, that's the purpose of it here. So I apologize. But yeah, we can chat about some other stuff as well. Hang on, let me mute myself for a sec. It's like nearly midnight where I am, and I'm meant to be up for work pretty early tomorrow, but oh well. It's available for Audible for West Oz. Grabbing it now. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. I hope you like it. At the very least, I can tell you that the audiobook is only about 4 hours long or something like that, so it's not much of a commitment. And for anyone that's interested in hearing what the audiobook sounds like, I can play you a sample right now, actually. Hopefully this won't be too loud. Just bear with me a sec. I'm just going to play you a little bit of a sample, just so you know what his voice sounds like. The narrator's name is Tom Fairfoot, and he's done a few audiobooks that are on Audible, and I think he did a really good job. Here we go. No? Why can't I hear anything? Why can't I hear that?
Him the appearance.
Oh, there we go.
Elia followed Enzo's gaze and gave his foot a gentle shove with his own. Chapter 1.
I'm just gonna play you just...
No one willingly
just like, I don't know, 20 seconds of the audiobook, just so you can get an idea about how it sounds. Again, let me know if it's too loud.
Chapter 1. No one willingly travels the Sa-Takar desert. The vast ocean of stone, dust, and blindingly white sand promises nothing but despair and an unmarked grave. It was understood that stepping onto the sand was only for the foolish. The foolish, the mad, and those that had spent an age too long nestled in the damp, dark bosom of Garahul, the most notorious prison known by man or beast.
That sounds
Now
scary.
what the most dangerous territory in...
Anyway, that's Tom's voice. Just a little sample for you there. I don't think I can play much more without Audible spanking me, because it's Audible exclusive. But yeah, that's what his voice sounds like. It's very good, very professional. Hopefully you guys heard that. Could you hear that? I'm going to feel really silly if you guys didn't hear any of that. Okay, hang on a second. When they yell at you for being tired tomorrow, just tell me you're doing a book launch. Yeah, I don't think I would mention that at work, because I don't really want everyone that I work with being like, oh, you write books, blah blah blah. You know, it's a whole thing. Anyone who writes knows how it goes anytime you mention that you're a writer. What was the hardest part about writing the book? Okay, so I've got a few questions already, and I will answer them in just a moment. We'll do like a fun little Q&A, if you like. Just trying to get this to work. All my stuff on here is still set up from like streaming on Twitch, so you know. Where is it? Okay, doesn't look like it wants to work for me for some reason. Doesn't matter, all good. Basically, I was just going to show you the Audible page, so you can didn't mean to do that. So you can see kind of where it is, but anyway, I will show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I should have planned this out more, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the book first, like the physical copy I have here. I'll tell you a little bit about what it is, like just the general idea of the story, just in case you don't know. And then after that, I'll answer some questions. And it doesn't even have to be about the book. If you have any questions about anything at all, like, you know, writing in general or YouTube, anything like that. So get your questions ready. And for now, I'm just going to quickly pop a link in the chat to the Audible page if you want to have a look. I was just going to show you, but I don't think it's going to let me screen share for some reason. I've been wanting to get back into streaming on Twitch for a while, and I think I will. I know I always say that, but I think I will. But I need to figure all this stuff out again. I'm very rusty. That's the link there to the Audible page. Just started a new job, and only thing I have to talk about other than my children is writing hobby and finally being almost complete with final edits for my novel. That's awesome. Almost done with final edits. That means you got the hardest part out of the way. The hardest part's always finishing the first draft, at least for me. Sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, not that it's my voice, but I'm sure Tom appreciates it too. Oh yeah, I listened to that sample the other day. Book sounds awesome. He does have a really great voice, and the great thing about Tom Fairfoot, for anyone joining, the guy who did the narration for the audiobook, he communicated with me a lot about like the type of voices I wanted for a lot of the characters. For example, there's one right at the very start you'll notice who sounds a lot like Jason Statham. And that wasn't initially a creative choice, but he sent me a few like examples of a voice he could do, and one of them kind of sounded like Jason Statham, and I was like, let's lean into the whole Jason Statham voice, because that actually works really well for that character, you know? And there's also like a musician at a certain point in the book too, who has a really posh accent, and I really like what he did with that too. Sounds great to listen in the car, so I'm glad you've got it on Audible. I'm really glad to have it on Audible too. It's the first time I've ever had a book on Audible, because it's like, the thing with getting a book onto Audible as a self-published author is that it's super expensive, and I'm not saying it's more expensive than it should be. It's fair that it's expensive. It's a lot of work. But B, because I live in Australia, we can't upload to Audible ourselves from here, even though I'm a self-published author, because for some reason Amazon cuts off a lot of their services, like Kindle Vella as well, to people in Australia, and I think maybe the UK, maybe not, I don't know. There's a bunch of places where they don't let you do it, so I had to go through a third party, and now that third party company, they're great and everything, they're nice, but they're going to take a little bit of a cut from every sale as well. So Amazon is already notorious for taking too much of the profit from audiobooks, and then these guys on top of that are going to take their little cut, so I'm not going to get much back from the audiobooks, but that's okay. I'm actually fine with that. I'm just stoked that I actually have an audiobook, you know? Legit, all of them, looky. I love the grunginess in the voice. Yeah, agreed. Legit, all of them look at you like you're a weirdo when you say you write fantasy. When I tell people I write fantasy, they always jump straight into like assuming that you write like Lord of the Rings fan fiction. Bless them, bless their hearts. Okay, let me show you the actual paper copy first, and then I'll get into the answering some questions. Sounds good. Always here to help out if you need it. Already sharpening my mod sword. I'm glad you stuck around, Lena. Don't tell Jenny or the other ones, but you've been a pretty good mod. Hey Dan, how you doing? Guess what I'm listening to this week? I have to guess it's I'm just spitballing, but maybe a fun little fantasy adventure by some handsome Australian dude. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Nah, thanks for popping in, Dan. I appreciate that. Anyway, let me cut straight to the chase. I'll show you the paperback. You might have already seen it because I posted it on Instagram, and there is a watermark on it. So the paperback, if you choose to buy it, won't have the watermark. So just ignore that. But that is it there. Hopefully you can get a good look. Blood for Coins, Book 1 in the Sabres Noctum. That's what it looks like. I think it looks so fresh. Really, really nice. Although the self-published authors on here who have published through KDP will relate with me here. When you send through the cover image for the printing, you have to like bump the brightness up like almost 200% because they print so dark, you know? But yeah, that's the paperback there. That's the back. And it does actually, I should mention this. Where is it? Hang on a second. It does have a map in it that I made through this, like, I had to pay for this, like, program where you make maps and stuff, and I made it myself, and I think it looks really good. But unfortunately, in the finished paperback version, the map's just going to be a bit smaller inside the page because there was a whole lot of fuck around because it's printed to the edge in this version, the map. So it's going to be a little bit smaller, and I'm hoping it's still completely legible, but it should be. So get the paperback and the audiobook. No, don't do that. You don't have to buy two copies. A certain disheveled goblin has entered. He has indeed. Good old Dan. Can I just say, at the risk of sounding like a complete ass kisser, Daniel Green, who I'm sure you're aware of if you're watching a video about a fantasy book right now has been so like supportive during this process, which is very rare with like people that have kind of like a huge platform. But yeah, no, a little while ago I just mentioned in a comment on one of his videos that I was I can't remember what my question was, but it was something to do with self-publishing, and then he arranged a Discord call with me where he sat there for like half an hour out of his time. We didn't make a video or anything. We just sat there and he gave me advice about self-publishing and stuff, and I just really appreciate it. Didn't have to do it, but he did it, and I appreciate it. That's all I wanted to say. Hopefully I don't look like too much of a brown noser. Handsome, more like floor. Ah, dude, stop. Can't be blushing on my own stream. Not gonna lie, my writing journey started with Naruto fanfiction like 15 years ago. we all started kind of with fanfiction, didn't we? I made a video about this a long time ago, but the first thing I ever wrote was this horrible, like, urban fantasy book about 4 kids that were based on me and 3 of my friends that inexplicably get superpowers that pretty much mirror the Fantastic Four. And then the rest of the book is just us doing stuff that I thought seemed cool. Like, even though we were tiny kids, we got like these magic motorcycles that we rode into a portal to fight some zombies and stuff. It was a complete mess, but I kind of wish I still had the manuscript. Would have been great to read back on. And the funniest, worst part that is like mind-boggling, even despite the fact that I wrote it as a kid, is that I included I'm getting a mind blank. What's his name? Tobey Maguire, the guy who played Spider-Man originally. I included Tobey Maguire like in the story, and I don't mean Spider-Man. I mean the actor Tobey Maguire was in the story as a secret wizard or something. It was super weird. Super weird. Anyway, that's where my writing journey started, so that's the level of excellence you can expect if you decide to check out Blood for Coins. And actually, I should tell you a bit about what this story actually is in a second. Let me catch up on some comments. And I am taking note of the questions you guys asked earlier, by the way, for when I do a bit of a Q&A. Sasquatch smut story? Nah, that was well... The Sasquatch smut story that I wrote was well into my YouTubing. I think it was only a couple of years ago, actually. Embarrassingly late. You know what? Actually, no, not embarrassingly. I stand by it. Ingram Spark makes me want to have never been born. Yeah, you know what? With Ingram Spark, hang on. Don't mind my sexy pajama pants for just a second. I just want to show you guys, something. Okay, never mind. I was going to show you something, but I just remembered that I lent the hardcover for this book to the last girl I was seeing for a while, and I never got it back, so she got a free book out of me and bounced. But anyway, when I wrote this horror book, I only did it through Ingram Spark because they did hardcovers. KDP didn't do hardcovers at that time. They do hardcovers now, but not with dust jackets, so I still wouldn't want to do a hardcover through them. But I did this horror book through Ingram Spark, and I don't think I've ever experienced so many bullshit issues in my entire life. And the reporting system for that website is just an absolute mess. I would strongly advise against publishing through Ingram Spark unless like having a hardcover is vital for you. That's all. That's my little rant about Ingram Spark. I was going to make a full video about Ingram Spark ages ago, but I decided I didn't really want to waste any more time on him. I haven't even checked my reporting for that horror book in over a year. I have no idea how well it did in the last year because I don't want to go near Ingram Spark. I'm also Australian. What third party did you use? I will tell you. I will tell you right now, because if you're wanting to publish an audiobook to Audible through from Australia, I think these are literally the only people that do it. Or they're the only people I could find anyway. Hang on a second, I'll tell you in just a moment. I'm gonna have to dig through my emails a bit here. While I'm doing this, I thought I should tell you guys, I also recently opted in to be an article writer for the Fantasy Review, which is like a blog website that's like just blowing up in popularity. I think they got like over 1 million website visits last month alone, which is insane. But the guy from there, I think his name's Tommy, he was looking for people to write for the Fantasy Review, and I kind of just said, that's tempting, you know, and he fully invited me to do it, so I'm going to be writing articles for them soon too, voluntarily, so it's not like a paid thing. It's just something I've wanted to do for a while. Should be fun, but I'm really excited. It's not just like book reviews, it's like movies and shows and stuff too. Okay, I'm having trouble finding this email. My emails are just a mess at the moment because it's so close to release. Okay. I'll have to come back to that, sorry, it's taken me too long. And I'm falling well behind on chat too. The only printing service I've used that does good color work is Lulu. I've never used Lulu. I've heard a bit of good hustle about them. That wasn't me, dude. Who did you talk to? Kayla keeps saying this. That's the problem with goblins, eh, dude? There's too many goblins out there. I think they're trying to take your spot, mate. Also, the fact that your last name is Green and you refer to yourself as the Goblin is just the perfect combo. So I'm sure 1,000 people have done it already, but I'm just going to start referring to you as the Green Goblin. Cam, is the book wide or just KU? So it's Kindle Unlimited. And speaking of Daniel actually brought this up in a recent video when he put his audiobooks onto YouTube. So I personally am doing my books as Amazon exclusive, so through Kindle Unlimited, that kind of stuff, and Audible exclusive. However, Audible and Amazon are notorious for treating their authors like shit, but unfortunately, I don't have an enormous marketing team behind me, so if I do go worldwide distribution, I risk cutting down profits really drastically from pretty much, I'm assuming, the only place where I'm really going to get sales. And I'm not really expecting to make all my money back from this book, considering, you know, the amount of money that went into the cover art, the editing, the narration, obviously. I'm not expecting to make all my money back. However, I'm completely okay with that. That's fine. But if I could make a good chunk of it back, that would be preferable. But in the long run, maybe when I do book 2, maybe I'll look into going a bit wider, depending on how well it does. I'm going to fire through some comments here just really quickly so I can catch up. Are you wearing your PJs? Yes, it's like midnight here. Of course I am. I'm so glad I never touched Ingram. Read enough reviews like a decade ago. Yeah, I heard that they updated their reporting system, but to be honest, I don't really care. Deshaun, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Charlie just bought the audiobook. Thank you, man. See, when I knew when I did this stream that one of my major concerns is that it was going to seem like I'm doing this stream solely so I can sit here and be like, buy my book, but it's literally not that. It's just me telling you that it's done. Because, you know, this is the channel that you're watching this on right now. I have 2 YouTube channels, one for book reviews and one for my writing stuff. That's the channel you're watching right now, the writing one. And it's like, the whole purpose of this channel is to talk about my writing progress. So it would seem silly not to like do something on the release of my book, you know? Congrats, Wolfe, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very nice of you. You can publish an audiobook as an Australian to distribute pretty much everywhere through Findaway Voices, among others. Findaway Voices. Do they go through Audible as well? Because I swear I looked around through a lot, and oh, okay. I probably avoided these guys because they're a .com rather than a .com.au, and I was just a little worried about having my profits going through an international company. They might be in Australia, I'm not too sure, but the ones I ended up going with, they are apparently in Australia, so that just seemed like the easiest way for me, you know? Still trying to find the name of this company I use. It's... Oh, here we go. I think I found it. Nope. Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about the book, just so you have a general idea of what the story is. Just in case you don't know, you know. Did they change their name? I think they did. Oh my god, so the people I used, I'm pretty sure they've changed their company name since I used them. Anyway. Congrats on your release. Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other writing videos planned? Yeah, look, I do want to do more writing videos. It's just the tricky thing with a writing channel is that versus a book review channel, I can just read a book and then do a review, or I can do a discussion video about a certain topic within fantasy, that kind of stuff. But with a writing channel where the topic is literally just my own writing or writing in general, it's a lot more difficult, especially when I'm like on the tail end of publishing a book, because it's like there's not a whole lot more to say than I have already, you know? It's like I've done this much, now I'm just working on, well, at this point it's going to be the marketing. So I've just kind of not known what to make videos about for a little bit. And also it's been a time constraint, but you can imagine I've been a bit busy leading up to this week. But yes, I do want to do more videos. So, cutting to the chase. This is Blood for Coins. It's part of a fantasy series called The Sabers Noctum, which is going to be episodic. So what I mean by episodic is basically each book, for lack of a better comparison, I know it's not good practice to compare books to TVs and movies and stuff, but just in the instance of story structure, I want you to think of the books as episodes, the story arcs, which would be like every 4 or 5 books, as seasons, and the series as a whole, The Sabers Noctum, is the TV show. Because the thing is, I want to be able to write these indefinitely. I have no idea when the last book will be or how the story is going to end. And I kind of like that, because that's how a lot of authors used to do serialized fantasy way back in the day. And that's the kind of fantasy I really enjoy reading. So I wanted to try that for myself. So they will have major story arcs that tie all of the episodes together, you know what I mean? But for the most part, each book is going to be a little self-contained adventure. So in this one, the first one, this is Enzo and this is Rascal. Basically, they are sellswords, so they're swords for hire, and their job within this dangerous world called Coragrave, which is filled with like monsters and witches and all this kind of dangerous shit and bandits, all that kind of stuff. Their job is to basically do anything that people pay them enough money to do, and they've been doing it for quite a long time, so they're not coming into it as newbies. Imagine kind of like The Witcher, except in more of a Wild West setting, and you know, you've got like two dudes instead of one. And in the first book, at the very start, one of them is in the world's most dangerous prison. So his kind of whole thing is that he wants to escape. And it is kind of a little spoiler for me to tell you this, but also it's not, because it happens at the very start of the book. He does end up escaping. I won't say how, but he does. And from there, him and his mate Rascal go and seek refuge in this little town right near the desert where this prison was. So they go to the little town and they think they're safe for the time being. However, the town is ruled over by this just gluttonous, like wine-guzzling lord up on the hill. And while they're trying to figure out how they're going to get to the next place without being spotted by all of the prison guards that are looking for him, they discover that the Lord on the Hill has a very dark and very dangerous secret, and that secret ends up kind of yanking them into the fire again, into the danger. And that is the first book in the Sabers Noctum. Every book is going to be a fun little self-contained adventure, and eventually, every 4 or 5 books, they'll be tied together into a bigger, high-stakes conflict. There you go. That's a summary. I actually have like a proper video that's going to be going up explaining it more articulately, but off the top of my head, that's what it is. And now that I've done that, I can jump into answering some questions. So I'm going to scroll way up, because I know there were a few questions earlier that I tabled. If you do have any questions for me, not just about the book, about YouTube, writing, anything at all, type it in the chat now and I'll start answering. Trying to find those questions from earlier, having a bit of trouble. You know what, if you asked me a question earlier, just ask it again, because I can't find it. There's too much going on. It's perfectly okay for you to be doing a release day night for your book. You have a following of people who are more than willing to support you and want to read your work. Thank you, I appreciate that. I should probably... Am I able to make like a pinned comment or something? Just so people can actually find the link to the book if they want to check it out for themselves. Bear with me a second here. I haven't streamed on YouTube for years, guys, so I'm a total noob at this. Just bear with me. I'm going to post a link in the chat, and I'm posting the link purely to see if I can pin it. See if it's gonna let me pin this, just so anyone who joins it can see it. Yes. Okay, there we go. Nice. All right, easy done. I don't feel the need to justify. If you had a publicist, they'd be doing this for you. Oh, imagine how nice it would be to have a publicist. God, that would be nice. If only. Writing channels that seem to do the best are like 1-hour vlog channels. That just sounds exhausting. Yeah, look, it's not for me. I know a lot of people have a lot of fun, and I have done vlogs in the past where I actually had fun making them. But making a vlog about just my life in general, involving writing for this channel consistently, like at least every week, there's no way I could do that. I have a fun and interesting life to me, but I don't think it would be a fun and interesting life to watch. You know what I mean? It's one of those, like, I'm a bit of an introvert. I like being at home. I like hanging out and chilling. So I can't imagine trying to turn that into entertainment. That's all. So that's why I don't think I could, like Kate Kavanagh, who is, I haven't spoken to Kate in a million years, but Kate and me, at least were friends. We haven't spoken in a while. I'm still friendly with her. No issues. We just kind of drifted apart or whatever. But Kate Kavanagh is probably one of the biggest people on like the writing YouTube space. And her videos are like big vlogs. And she does really well, as she should. She's awesome. I just realized that your series and its structure remind me of the book series that got me into fantasy. No wonder I've been so excited for it. Which series is that, Linus? I'd be interested to know. I love that concept a lot. You could go super crazy with the story, try out stuff you've always wanted to try. Yeah, see, that's the best part, Lena. That is exactly it. With an episodic story structure inside of a fantasy world where pretty much anything goes, I can do like the craziest shit. And it doesn't, like, I won't say it doesn't matter, because obviously it does, but like it doesn't have to be like important to like the major story arc as much as it would have to be important if it was just a chapter in a proper full-length epic fantasy novel. You know what I mean? Like if you read an epic fantasy like a Brando Sando book or something, you need every chapter to contribute at least equally towards the ultimate conflict, right? But with episodic fantasy, and especially when you're doing self-contained adventures, one adventure doesn't really have to have anything to do with the last one, as long as there's something that kind of ties it together in the end, you know? For example, I think in the video I made that's going to be going up soon for this book, an example I used is that in one book they could be doing a heist or breaking someone out of a castle or whatever, and in the next book you could completely switch it up and have them chasing a gang of shapeshifters through a magic portal to like another dimension or something. You can just go in any direction you like. It's beautiful. I have a lot of really exciting ideas for it, actually. Is there a moment far down the line for your series that you're already excited to write, or even that you have already written or have on the back burner waiting to include in a book? Yeah, there's a few. There's definitely scenes that replay in my head for this series that have to be kind of way down the line that I am really excited to write, but it's a bit of a bummer knowing I won't get to write them for so long, but it's exciting, you know? A lot of my writing just comes as I go, though. Like, when I first started writing Blood for Coins, the story looked almost drastically different to how it turned out. Like, the ultimate conflict of this story was completely different when I first wrote it. And then one day I was just writing, and then it started taking a different shape in my head, and I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. And I just wrote, and I was like, all right, this works better. I like this better. This is how we're gonna go. Hang on, are you guys having audio issues? Can you guys all hear me okay through both ears? Because if it's just through one, that's going to bother me. Oh, I think I can see it here right in front of me. It is just through one. That's annoying. Why does it do that? There we go. That should be better. Let me know if that sounds a bit better. It should. That should be through both now. Get some better. I'll get some more thematic music on. Hang on. Something a bit more like fantasy. There we go. Okay, let me make sure I not falling behind on questions too. Love the episodic type series. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. See, it's a bit of a gamble, like a bit of a roll of the dice to write a set of books that are so short. This is less than 200 pages, which is almost like a taboo in fantasy. It's about 45,000 words, and yeah, generally in fantasy, traditional publishers wouldn't touch this. There's no way. Like, even if that's a route I wanted to go down, personally, I preferred to go down self-publishing. Not to say I could have been traditionally published if I wanted to, but I don't think they would have touched this because of the length. Every publisher I look at every now and then for videos, their submission guidelines are like at least 70 to 150,000 words for fantasy, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, going with an episodic shorter format is pretty scary because it's a niche and a lot of people aren't going to be interested. Like, this isn't cozy fantasy, but just as an example, cozy fantasy is a niche and a lot of people love it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are in the middle, like me. I'm in the middle for cozy fantasy. So that's, I imagine, how it's going to go for this as well. But the beauty of writing a series so short, or books so short, is that I want to be releasing these pretty quickly in comparison to other fantasy series. Rather than writing like one book every year or two, I want to be writing like 3 or 4 books a year, 3 or 4 of these books a year, because they are short and that's completely doable. It's a bit more expensive for me. It would be very profitable for someone with an enormous platform, I imagine. Not so much for me, which is fine. It'll be a bit expensive, but it's how I think this story will work the best. So that's how I'm going to do it. But yeah. Episodic. Are you planning to attend any cons here in Australia? Maybe. I used to go to a lot of cons like back in the day, like a few years ago, but I've always found them to be a bit lackluster. At least in where I live in Brisbane, it's usually just like a big, really empty looking warehouse with a few booths here and there. Which I know sounds like I'm describing every con ever, but just trust me. I've seen the videos of the cons in America. The cons in Australia that I've been to are a lot emptier and a lot more like just kind of quiet and awkward, and everything is like way overpriced. If you want to get a photo with a celebrity, it costs like nearly $200. It's just, I just barely see any benefit in it, you know? What is your best tip for people who aren't the best at social media and marketing? I hate to tell you, Axel, but I am not the best at social media and marketing. It's something that I was horrible at with all of my other books. For example, my horror that I showed you a moment ago. I did barely any marketing for that. Which, to be honest, I was like, I didn't really care if it made a lot of sales. I just wanted to write it and put it up for anyone that's interested. But I did barely any marketing at all. And it kind of shows. Like, it actually did a lot better than I thought it would. But I think if I'd done a lot of marketing, it could have done even better, you know? I want to do differently with Blood for Coins. I actually want to make a real effort to market this, because I can't keep taking the piss. Like, if I tell people and say that I want to be able to make enough money from my writing and YouTube, whatever, to quit my job and just be a writer, I'm not saying I want to be rich or wealthy. It would be nice, but if I could live just comfortably, exactly the way I do right now, but write instead of having my shitty full-time job, that's the goal. And if that is my goal, I have to actually start putting effort into marketing. So to answer your question, aside from the rambling, sorry, just let me get comfy here. Outside of all the rambling I just did, in regards to social and marketing, I would probably say that if it's something you have interest in doing, building a platform is a great thing to do. It doesn't have to be YouTube, but you know, if you like blogging or anything like that, I would say give it a try, at least. If you have no interest in that at all, then don't do it, because if you do it just for the sake of making sales, people are going to be able to tell that you don't want to be doing this, and they're just going to reject you. But having a platform is really, really good. Aside from that, I would say being really involved in the book community, because if you are really involved in the book community, they're going to, here's a great example right here. If you are involved in the book community, they're going to show up when you ask for a bit of support, like you guys are doing for me right now. And you don't have to be like a creator or have an online platform to do that as well. I've seen a lot of people who are just, you know, tweeters on Twitter who are involved in book communities, who have put projects up and they've been massively successful just because of how many connections they've made. Aside from that, maybe just look into running a lot of ad campaigns, use advanced reader copy websites like Book Sirens to get people to read your book and review it. There's a lot of resources out there. It's not an easy thing to do. Marketing your book is not easy. There's no cheat code, because if there was, everyone would use it and then it would become overcrowded and redundant. So it's just one of those things. There's like an attention economy, and you just have to try and play your way into that economy as best you can. I wanted to know what the hardest part of writing the book was. I mean, it's a cop-out answer, but I always say the hardest part of writing the book is finishing it, because that's true. I'm getting a lot better at it, but I imagine a lot of people, a lot of you guys, even if you're writers, the biggest struggle is just finishing the first draft, because once you do that, it's like you've got momentum behind you and you know exactly what you need to be doing next. Finishing it, or maybe just trying to get the pacing right, which I think I mean, people may disagree with me, and that's completely okay. But I think I nailed the pacing in this story, considering it's so short. That was really hard, especially with a fantasy, because you need to be doing a bit of world building, right? But I also didn't just want an info dump. But I also only had like 200 pages to do world building and introduce you to characters and get you to connect with those characters and tell a story and build up a conflict and have a resolution. Getting the balance right on all of those things took a lot of planning and a lot of work and a lot of trial and error. I had to do a lot of cutting, a lot of adding, but I think I got it right. So yeah, the pacing. I think the pacing was an issue just because of how short it is. Forced vlogs are awkward anyway. Yeah, I completely agree. Let me fire through some questions and make sure I'm not falling behind again. It was a series called Beast Quest. I've heard of that. I've heard a lot about that, actually. I feel like they mention Beast Quest a lot in like TV shows as well. What is my inspiration to write this book? Okay, so I have a number of inspirations for writing this book, but I think there's two inspirations that I'll mention because it's the two that I think you're really gonna like feel if you choose to read it, and that is firstly The Witcher. You're gonna see a lot of like, how do I put this? I'm not saying in any way that this is like a Witcher ripoff or a Witcher clone or anything. I think it's very different to the world and the setting of The Witcher. But there's also a lot of like the same kind of atmosphere that can be found in The Witcher. You're going to be able to tell that I was inspired by The Witcher. And I was, because The Witcher is one of my favorite IPs, intellectual properties in existence. I love the whole Witcher like franchise, just down to my bones. So that was a huge inspiration. And the second inspiration I'll mention is, it's a bit corny, but supernatural. This book really is, and I've said this a few times, this book really is like if Supernatural and The Witcher had a baby. I'm not saying it's as good as either of those things, but the general like atmosphere and type of story that you can expect, it's like if Sam and Dean became witches and were thrust into a fantasy world. That's basically what it is. Although I think neither of those characters are as mopey as Sam. Sam Winchester, by the way, not Samwise Gamgee. Your vlog was a lot of fun. I think it's one of the first videos of yours that I saw, but no one sane can build their life around making it interesting enough to vlog 24/7. Agreed. Alright, so the audio start. Oh wow, I am well behind on chat, aren't I? Jeez. Right, up to the bit where the audio was fixed. Nice. Do you have any plans for Camp Nano? No, not really. I don't really do Camp NaNoWriMo, to be honest. Sometimes I might do the actual NaNoWriMo because it's an easy, well, it's not easy at all, but it's like a time of year that I know very well and I'm familiar with, so I can kind of plan out ahead of time. But doing like NaNoWriMo and Camp NaNoWriMo, it's just a lot to put on my like planning plate, you know, with everything else. The headphones got stuck. Oh, I nearly cut my cord in half. Stephen King's The Green Mile was originally released as a serial. I've seen several indies start doing this option to keep the initial price as low as people want indies to be. Yeah, and also in regards to pricing, I had absolutely no say in the pricing of the audiobook. Now I mention, I don't even know how much it is. It's already in my library, so it won't tell me the price. I don't know if it's what you would consider a fair price for an audiobook, but something I didn't know before I started this process is Amazon decides the audiobook price, not the person who uploads it. So there you go. But as for the paperback and the ebook, I feel personally that I made them quite cheap because, to be honest, it sounds like I'm talking shit, but I just genuinely don't care about like making a massive profit off this book. I just want people to be able to read it if they're interested in reading it. Having people like this series and want to continue this series when I keep writing them is a lot more valuable to me than making a couple of $100 more than I would have otherwise. So I tried to make them as cheap as I could while still obviously trying to make a little bit of money back that I put into the book. So I feel like the pricing is pretty fair. Once you finish them, will you release in one big chunker for those who like chunky boy books? Yeah, so what I think I'm going to do is, you know how I said that I made the comparison before that each of these books is an episode and each story arc every 4 or 5 books is a season? What I think I'm going to do is every time I finish a major story arc, I will put that story arc into a hardcover, like an omnibus, and release it as like a volume. So after the first like 4 or 5 books of this, there will be a hardcover version that compiles those 4 or 5 books, and that will be the first major story arc of the Sabers Noctem, and then we'll start on the next one, which will be more short paperbacks, and then once the next story arc's done, it'll get a hardcover too, and it'll just keep going like that. I think that's a good idea. It gives me a good opportunity to get new cover art done specifically for that hardcover, which I think would be really fun. The feeling of having a finished product you worked on is awesome, like beating Dark Souls. Getting to experience that 3 or 4 times a year is going to be great. Excited for you. Yeah, me too. I really hope I can fulfill that promise to myself. I feel like I can. Writing, around 50,000 words in, let's say I give myself like 3 months, I think is completely doable. It's really not a lot, at least for me personally. I definitely wouldn't trust myself to write a full-length novel in like 6 months or something like that, which is funny because NaNoWriMo is literally like write a novel-length book in 30 days. But yeah, I wouldn't trust the quality of my work if I gave myself like 6 months to write a full-length novel. But in regards to like, 40 to 50,000 words, I reckon I could write that within like 2 months. And then obviously the next month I would want to use for revisions and polishing, that kind of stuff. It's not going to be like a strict deadline every 3 or 4 months though. I'll just see how it goes. But ideally, I would be publishing 3 or 4 of these books a year. Or actually, better to put it like this. How about I would be publishing each major story arc per year. So before the end of this year, the first major story arc for, part 1 of the Sabers Noctem would be done. And then next year I would start on the next major story arc after maybe a bit of a longer break. Again, kind of like seasons in a TV show. How I start trying to write short and somehow it just expands. Yeah. See, the thing is, Catherine, I'm kind of the opposite. When I try to write long books, again, like this horror book, this one's about 80,000 words. And when I started writing this, I knew I wanted it to be at least 70,000 words. And the first draft was only like 50,000 words. And I was like, I can't just pull 20,000 words out of my ass. And also, there was a whole chapter I had to cut out because it didn't work properly, But anyway, I approached the story completely differently, and I found a new angle, and it ended up working out really great in the end. And it ended up working out really great for me. Whether the story is great or not is completely up to subjective opinion. How about intentional cons like the world's biggest book fair right here in Frankfurt? International cons, sorry. We don't get a lot of those, I don't think. I think we get like... I don't even know if Comic-Con still goes on here. Ever since COVID, we don't really get a lot of cons. I think... Is Supernova still a thing? I'm so plugged out with like the cons in Australia. I'm sorry. I'm not the person to ask about conventions in Australia. I've never liked them that much, to be honest. It's just I'm too claustrophobic to be around shoulder to shoulder with people, which luckily isn't a big problem with cons in Australia because hardly anyone goes to them anyway. I was only think I might be able to get a copy of your book if I ended up at the same con, but I'm on the opposite side of the country. Yeah, you said you're in Perth, right? Was that you? I think you're in Perth, yeah. Hey, Abbas. How you doing? What was your biggest writing day by word count? I feel like my biggest writing day would probably have been one of the 10-hour live streams I did, where I wrote for like 10 hours straight, although... Okay, maybe I'm being a bit generous with that explanation. I didn't like write for 10 hours straight. I live streamed for 10 hours straight, said I was going to write the entire time, and ended up writing in like 2-hour blocks with massive breaks in between. But yeah, I think in one of those 10-hour streams, I ended up getting like, I don't know, a lot. I got a lot done. I took a year off of writing and plan on using Camp NaNoWriMo to get back into it. My goal next month is to finish my first draft. Good luck, Deshaun. Nail it. Which, agree that yeah, I'm well aware that you like The Witcher, Lena. Looking forward to start listening tomorrow morning. Thank you. I appreciate that, Lisa. $15 on Audible. Okay, so it's not that bad. I mean... so the audiobook is only about 4.5 hours, I think, which is very short compared to most other audiobooks. But then I think most other audiobooks, like the ones that are 20 plus hours, are like upwards of $30 plus. So I guess $15 seems fair. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. See, the thing is, Audible and Amazon, Audible's owned by Amazon. They take such a huge cut out of my pocket for the audiobooks. And then again, I mentioned before, the company I had to use to upload the audiobook, they get their cut as well. So I'm probably not going to see a lot of that $15 anyway. So, you know. But if you have an audiobook or Audible subscription, you can use a credit as well if you have some spare. My father died a year ago after 6 years fighting against cancer. It was so sudden. A big part of me is afraid of finishing my book, as I feel I'm betraying him by continuing to do my passion. Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that, Linda. But also, I don't see at all how it would be betraying him to continue to do your passion. Yeah, I don't know how that would be a betrayal in any sense. I would say keep going. If anything, I would say keep going in memory of him. My dad was probably one of the greatest storytellers I've ever known, and he never even picked up. I don't think I ever even saw him write with a paper and pen, let alone on a computer. He was just a good storyteller in the way that he would tell people about something he did. For example, if he went down to the store to grab a bottle of milk, he would be like acting it out, and he would be like, so I walk in the door, blah blah blah, and he would spend 5 minutes acting out the walking in the door part, and like it was a whole performance. He was basically like a theater actor at the end of the day, a theater actor wearing flip-flops. And he was one of the best storytellers I've ever known, and unfortunately I lost him when I was younger. And one of the biggest driving things for me in my passion for writing books is knowing that I'm kind of continuing his legacy of being a storyteller. And my mum is still alive, but she's a massive bookworm. So my dad was a good storyteller and my mum's a massive reader, and those worlds kind of collide with my passion. So there you go. And my music taste. I'll be listening to like AC/DC one day because of my dad, and the next day I'll be listening to ABBA because of my mum, you know. My new release is about 146,000. Holy hell, that is a big book. Although my idea of big books has changed a lot since reading Stormlight Archive. The last book in that series was like 500,000 words. 500,000 words. 500,000 words in one book. I read that and I felt a massive sense of accomplishment in reading that. I was like, that is the biggest book I've ever read in my entire life. That is the biggest commitment I've ever made in my entire life. And it was a great decision because the Stormlight Archive is fucking incredible. But yeah, it's kind of changed my perspective on what makes a long book, you know? Like compare 45,000 words to 500,000. Less than a tenth of that book. Like, come on, bro. I'm at 80,000 for my debut urban fantasy, and I feel the need to make it just a bit bigger. I mean, if you feel like you need to, go ahead, but 80,000 words for a urban fantasy is incredibly standard. 70,000 words is usually the rough standard for books like that. I would say don't focus on making it longer or shorter just to hit a arbitrary word count. But if you feel like you can do that and still have it reflect positively on the story, go ahead. I know that sounds like a cop-out, vague answer, but a lot of issues that self-published authors make is that they're like, I need my book to be this long. It needs to be this long. So they end up either cutting out a lot of important stuff or adding in a lot of fluff that just ruins what would have been a fantastically well-polished and trimmed story, you know? Big part of the universe I've created is still unclear to me, as mostly I plan as I go. Important things such as society, structure, species, kingdoms, some part of timelines I have figured out. Nothing wrong with planning as you go. That's what I do. I have a rough plan for when I go into it. For example, again, Blood for Coins, I was like, it's going to be a story about two sellswords. One of them is in prison. He's going to break out, and that's it. That was where I started when I literally started writing words for this book. And everything I just said takes place in like the first chapter. So everything else just, came as I went. I love long stories. I do too, to a certain extent. I think I definitely prefer shorter ones, but a long book is great if you want to get really emotionally attached, I miss your Twitch writing streams and doing the battles for Stream Champion at the end of the stream. Yeah, me too. Look, I said before that I do want to start up on Twitch again. It's just, how do I put this? So when I used to stream on Twitch all the time, my work that I did was 4 p.m. to midnight. So I would usually stream after work and it wouldn't be a big issue because I could just sleep in the next day. But that team that I was in ended up getting disbanded. So I got put back on more normal hours. So the latest I work now is like 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. rather than 4 p.m. to midnight. And 99% of the people that tune in for these streams are in time zones where if I was to stream during my like afternoon hours, they would be asleep. So the only time I can really stream is really late at night, like right now, for example. And I just can't do that on a lot of my work shifts now. I am going to try though, because again, I do have some shifts sometimes that are like 12 to 8, so I can kind of make that work. I could stream from like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. or something for me. But on the weeks where I'm working 8 a.m., like it's just not possible. Like, I won't be able to live stream those weeks. I just can't. I haven't read it yet. Do you recommend it? I'm going to assume you're referring to Stormlight Archive there, right, Catherine? I think that's about where the chat was at when I was talking about Stormlight Archive, but yes. Okay, let me revise that. I would recommend Stormlight Archive if you are a big fantasy fan, because if you just dabble in fantasy every now and then, it is an enormous commitment. Like, it's not the kind of thing you can just half-ass. I mean, you can read the first couple of chapters and be like, this isn't for me. But if you read like one book, you're going to be in a very weird place, because you're going to want to know what happens next. And then you're going to look ahead and you're going to see 3 or 4 more books that are all like nearly 500,000 words long. And you're going to be like, oh shit, that's a lot. Like, that is a lot of work. And that's what it was like for me. I wasn't sure. When I started it, I was like, I do not want to spend that much time reading one fantasy series. But as soon as I started it, I was like, I can't stop. Like, I literally can't stop, because it's so good. And I did. I finished it. B Money probably wrote 250,000 of those words while he was walking to bed. Yeah, you're not wrong, TL. Brandon Sanderson and his immense writing ability scares the crap out of me. I only pray I can write and complete a book that is a fraction of the size of one of his. Right? I think I have a little bit of a plan with the Sabers Noctum, like this series. I do at some point want to write like a full-length epic fantasy novel that ties into this world, but I don't think it'll be about these characters. Because, I mean, if you decide to read this book, you'll see that there is a lot of like kind of potential for different stories to be told. And I'm thinking I might write a full-length epic novel at some point about a different character with a way more important high-stakes plot. That's what happened to me with the Dresden Files. I'm on book 14. I am well behind on Dresden Files. I started it like last year, and I like it so far. It's alright. It hasn't really kicked off for me yet. Everyone says that around book 5 is when it gets really good, and I think book 5 is where I'm up to now. But yeah, I'm well behind. But the flavor of Dresden Files is so fun. I love it. It's like, it's just like this shit-talking Chicago trench coat wearing like detective for hire wizard, and his sidekick is a talking sassy British skull. Like, that's like the flavor, you know what I mean? It's just flavor. Need to get to bed, but congratulations on your release. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I really, really do. Sorry, guys. I just got a weird comment on like YouTube earlier today, and it's just I replied to it earlier, and then he's just replied again. It's just I'm not going to call him out in this video, in this stream actually, but he wasn't like an asshole or anything. It was just a weird one. Anyway, ignore that. I think I have officially made it up to date with chat. So if you have any last minute questions you want to get out, do it right now. I'll answer them. And then after that, I think I'll probably wrap it up. For anyone who has joined since I last talked about it, I'll take this chance while you guys write your last questions. You'll know by the title of the stream, I have a book that's out right now. It's just launched. It's a fantasy book, first book in a series. This is it. It's called Blood for Coins. It's an episodic fantasy series about 2 sellswords that do dirty jobs for money. Can be anything from like a heist to killing monsters, all that kind of fun stuff. Just imagine The Witcher crossed with Supernatural. That's the general vibe of these books. They're quite short. It's on Amazon and Audible, so you can get ebook, paperback, and audiobook. And yeah, this series is called Sabers Noctem. If I can be so bold, I think it's a really fun book, and it's the start to what should be a really fun series. When I wrote this, I wanted to write a series of shorter books that are more self-contained. Again, kind of like the story structure of The Witcher. And ignore the watermark, by the way. That's not going to be on the actual paperback. But yeah, I kind of wanted to harken back to the days of, the more serialized episodic types of fantasy you would get back in the day. I know they still exist today, and people do still write them. But you'll very rarely see them top the bestseller lists. So I would hope that it would trend back in that direction at some point. I think people are starting to get a little bit fatigued with huge, long, epic, dark fantasies. I imagine that's why Legends and Lattes exploded like it did, because it was so fresh, at least to the Western audiences. Over in like Korea and Japan, they've been writing stories like that for a long time. But I think Western audiences were very pleasantly surprised by Legends and Lattes and cozy fantasy, because it was the anti-epic in a certain sense. It wasn't long, it wasn't dark, it was short and bright and low stakes. Technically, I want to be clear, this is not as low stakes as an orc opening a coffee shop. It is a lot more dangerous than that, but I do think that people do want to see a bit of a trend back to lighter types of fantasy. I'm not saying everyone, and I'm not saying that dark, long, epic fantasy should stop. I'm just saying I wish that wasn't the only ones that we see on the bestseller list, 10-hour stream when? Not on your life. I absolutely prefer the longer form in SSF. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. How do you manage to write this fast? I'm actually not that fast of a writer at all. Compared to a lot of the other writers that you meet, I'm actually quite slow. This book's only like 45,000 words, and I've been writing this for God, how long has it been? More than 6 months. So under a year, but more than 6 months. And that is a lot longer than it should take me to write a book like this. But being the very first book in the series, I had to come up with the world and how the magic works and the creatures and all that kind of stuff. So the rest of the books in this series, I think, are going to be a lot faster to write, because I don't have to do as much world building. But yeah, I'm not that fast. I would say, just if you're finding it hard to focus on the writing part itself, I would say just focus on the end goal. Like, what do you want from your writing? Do you want to be able to hold a book that you wrote? Do you want to be able to hold something tangible and physical and be like, this is my book, I wrote this? And if you think enough about it, if you're like, yes, that is what I want, that's going to inspire you to sit down and do it, because at the end of the day, the hardest part, like I said earlier, is finishing the first draft. Do dirty jobs? Yeah. Yes, they do dirty jobs for money. Best of luck with it. Thank you, Catherine. It's very nice of you to say. Ingram still does those annoying watermarks? No, this is Amazon. The watermark just says not for resale. It's just because Amazon... I ordered this before the release date of the actual paperback, so they send them out with this watermark. That way I don't buy a ton of these without the watermark and then just sell it myself without Amazon getting that cut. But now that it's officially released, I can actually get a copy of my own book that doesn't have a big stinking watermark across the cover. Congrats on the launch. I got to go back to pretending I'm paying attention to my meetings. No worries. Catch you later, TL. Do you have any situations where you just want to continue writing a story way past its original ending and have to stop yourself from writing more? Yes, that is absolutely true, and not just true. That is a big part of why I decided to write this. Remember at the start of the stream, I said that I want to be able to write this series indefinitely. I don't know how or when this series is going to end. It could end in 5 years. It could end in 20. I have no idea. And I like that. I like the fact that these two characters here, I could be writing about these guys for a long time. Who knows? They could completely change over those years. That's the beauty of episodic fantasy. I'm going to be touting episodic fantasy until the day I die. It is so underrated. It is so fantastic, especially in fantasy. And it's just such a great way to like tell a story, you know, or tell multiple stories. When you write a series, like an epic fantasy series, people always want to know how many books are going to be in this. And they want you to be setting up the big villain from the first book. And if you start setting up the big villain from the first book, they need to know that eventually that big villain is going to die. And that'll be it. That's the end. But with a series like this, it can go anywhere. There are going to be major story arcs. Like seasons in a TV show. And these are episodes. There are going to be major story arcs. But after that major story arc, they can go back to business and start on the next story arc, you know? That's the beauty of it. I just love it so much. I've read the first paragraphs of your book and I'm impressed. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really nice of you to say. Episodic that would Fard and the Green Mouse as well as The Witcher. Yeah, I was saying before that The Witcher was a big inspiration for this series as a whole. There are a lot of similarities. I mean, these guys are sellswords. You know, they do contracts for money. Although the jobs they do are a bit more morally ambiguous than the stuff Geralt would probably say yes to. These guys are willing to get a bit more... I would say they're willing to get their hands a bit more dirty than the common Witcher, but not to say they're better than Geralt. Geralt would probably clown these guys if you put him in a ring together, but, you know, that's because he's Geralt. I'm still here because I heard we were wrapping up soon. Yes, I will be. I've read the first one. That was great. Okay. I prefer the longer form wasn't throwing shade. It was in relation to the Stormlight Archive books. No, I know, Catherine. That's fine. Even if you were saying, like, I prefer longer fantasy books, even if you straight out said, like, I don't like short fantasy books, I wouldn't be offended. I completely understand. I said before that books like this are a niche, and this isn't going to work for everyone. This isn't going to work for all fantasy fans, and that's okay. If that's not your kind of thing, then I don't expect you to get the book at all. But if the idea of fun, self-contained fantasy adventures about two guys just doing odd jobs for money, like killing monsters or robbing a lord or even more magical stuff, then check it out. That's all. Can you at least, for me that I'm following you all the time, can I have the PDF? The PDF of this book? Don't make me be that asshole that says, no, you can't have a free copy of my book, man. Come on, don't do that. It's okay that you asked, to be clear. Completely okay, but I can't. I can't just go giving out free copies of the book, because then someone else is going to be like, okay, you gave him a free copy, what about me? Like, you know, I'm sorry, dude. Only 45,000 words. How did you manage pacing? Is the plot quite small and you described a lot, or did you keep descriptions to a minimum and jump from scene to scene more quickly? Good question, Kieran. I was saying earlier in the stream that pacing was something I struggled with probably the most in this book. And eventually, after a lot of planning and trial and error, I think I locked it down. I don't normally hype myself up too much, but I really do think I got the pacing down well. and it's entirely because of its episodic structure. So I'm not... This book right here isn't telling a massive story. It's telling a little story inside of what will eventually be a bigger story. It's not exactly like a chapter in a novel, because it is very self-contained. There is a build-up and then a resolution, but the story is a lot smaller than you would find in like a Brandon Sanderson book, you know? And as for world building, that kind of stuff, I'm just starting slow. So I introduce you to the world, to the characters. I give you a general idea of how things work so that you can understand what's happening. But as for like all of the big things, like the real heavy lore of this fantasy world, you will learn as you go through the books, if you choose to read them, I mean. But that's the thing with a series like this. You're going to learn as you go, you know? When you mentioned about not knowing how long you'll write these characters for, it reminds me of a movie that was about a girl on an island who lived with her dad, and her dad went out to sea. She ended up making contact with a famous writer who was scared of leaving the house, and she talked to her adventure book character like a real friend. Why does that sound familiar? Did they make a movie about that with Bindi Irwin in it, or am I just tripping? Honestly, it's probably the perfect kind of book for me. I used to read so much, but now I barely find the time, so short books are better for me. Well, if you're after a short fantasy book that you can chew through very quickly, there you go. I did not expect you to say that. I'm sorry, yeah, I don't know if I'm just not understanding what you're trying to ask me for. I genuinely, I'm confused. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. What it seemed like to me is that you were asking for a PDF copy of my book. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I apologize. But if that is what you were asking for, then no. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give out free copies of my book. That doesn't make any sense. By PDF, I meant for those who cannot afford it. I don't think he's trolling, guys. I think he's genuinely asking. I would hope anyway. But you're putting me in a really awkward spot where I have to look like an asshole for being like, sorry, poor people, I can't give you a free copy of my book. I can't do that. That's not how self-publishing works. I'm sorry. If I start giving out free copies of the book on the grounds of how much money do you make, people are just going to be like, oh, okay, so I didn't make the cutoff for being poor. I'm not even going to get into it. It's just silly. I'm sorry. I apologize, but no. Look, I've made it to the end of the questions by the looks of it. It is almost 1 a.m. for me. So I think I'm going to call it here. However, I do want to say a big thank you to all of you guys for tuning in. I've ordered it. Look forward to reading it. Thanks, Kieran. I appreciate that. Good man. The purpose of this live stream isn't to say you must buy my book. It's just me letting you know that it's done. The gauntlet has been passed through. Like I said, this is a writing channel where I do writing updates. It would be silly to not give you the update that I finished my book, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it nonetheless. I bought your paperback from Amazon just now. Good viral marketing. Or I'm just a sucker. I expect you to sign it if I'm ever in the Southern Hemisphere. Tell you what, XX, I promise. If for whatever reason we ever end up in the same room, I will happily sign your book. Especially because I just recently came up with a new signature for myself, because I realized that my pen name signature was the same signature I use for like my personal life stuff, like my ID, my government ID, and I was like, oh, I can't be doing that. So I came up with a new signature for my like writing stuff, and I think it looks pretty damn cool. So there you go. Don't feel bad, it's so much work to write and publish. It really is, right? Like, I mean, you're obviously a writer as well, Catherine, being that you said you wrote like 150,000 word book. Holy hell, that's a lot. But yeah, you're right. I'm sure a lot of you are writers as well. I'm sure we can all agree that it's a lot. And I want to be relieved that I've done it and it's out and people can buy it now. But now I have to move on to the part of the process that I've never been any good at and the part that I really want to try this time to do. And that's marketing. So that's where I go from here. KU is free for the first month, by the way. Yep, the book is available through Kindle Unlimited if you're happy to read it as an ebook. So there you go. I guess I'm doing promotion for Amazon, like they need it, like they deserve it. But there you go. Congrats on your book release. It's awesome accomplishment. Can't wait to read it. Thank you, Axel. I have seen all of the support you've been giving me, Axel, and I appreciate it, including over on Twitter. It doesn't go unseen. Someday I'll have a signed copy as well. Yeah, Lena, I think I still owe you a signed copy from the giveaway anyway, so we can sort that out some other time. All right. Look, it's pretty late for me. I think I've done everything that I came here to do on the live stream. I'm sorry it started so late, by the way. I really am. I wasn't even going to stream because you might be able to tell my eyes like a bit banged up and I was exhausted. It was just a whole thing. I wasn't going to do it, but I did. But here we are. Do you really think you are a writer? Well, fuck, I'd hope so. I wrote books. That's usually how it works, buddy. You write words down, and then they go in books. That's what writers do. That's what writers do, yeah? Okay. All right. Well, on that note. Yeah, okay, obviously he's just trolling or something. Anyway, on that note, I really am going to wrap it up here, but thanks again, guys. Much appreciated. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Love you. And yeah, look after yourselves. I have to go over to the other channel now and publish the announcement video for the book. All right. Now for the part where I stare awkwardly at the screen while I try to figure out how to turn it off. Love you guys. Love you. I am going to start streaming on Twitch again soon. So,